Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yes, and I'm excited about the spiritual deep dives that we're going to talk about. And before the talk, you were talking about purpose and what that means to you. So maybe we can get a little definition from you or your guides.
About what purposes? Yeah. So I'm a purpose activator, and one of the reasons why I like to call myself the purpose activator is because purpose, and specifically soul purpose, for me has been a constant. So what I mean is that since I was young, I had this realization that there was more to life than what I was told, because I grew up in a family, in a culture where there's certain expectations placed upon me. And everyone, I am sure, has, most likely grew up in a family or a culture where there's certain norms and expectations that you're expected to kind of follow and check off the box to be considered successful, or worthy, etc. Right? And so I grew up in a culture, in a family that was very clear about who I should be and where I should go. In a way, almost like your future has already been carved out for you. And I followed the script. I followed what society wanted me to do. I check all the boxes, or I tried really hard to. But all this time, despite doing that, I felt like I was meant to do something more. And when I say something more, I mean something deeper. And growing up, I had no idea what that was. And so I was constantly looking and trying different things, joining the corporate world, going into higher education, volunteering. I did a lot of things in my 20s to kind of figure out who I was, and constantly had this nagging feeling that kept me up at night all the time, that I was meant to do something different. And so for me, this thing about purpose, I kept searching for that purpose. Like, what am I supposed to do? Um, was like a constant thing for me. And so when I came into, so I found spirituality, started meditating, and started kind of peeling back the layers of all the social programming, all the narratives, all the beliefs that I was taught by society, by my parents, to really uncover what it is that I really want. So, the sort of passion that is burning inside me. And
Mm.
so I figured out, after going through trial and error, um, what my purpose was. And so that is the one thing that I'm really passionate about sharing, and really passionate about helping other people discover. It is, what is our life mission? What is our soul purpose? Because I believe that we incarnate here. So I believe we have multiple lifetimes, and our soul is old and wise and have lived many, many lifetimes.
Mm.
And we came to Earth with a purpose. And so I'm really interested in embodying this purpose. And I hope that answers your question about what purpose is and what it means to me.
Yeah, so you literally found that your purpose is to help people find that because you had such a difficult time or such a journey trying to figure out what your purpose is. And I bet the way that it works, because I felt this with some of my manifestations, where when I wasn't in alignment with my purpose, if I was manifesting something for somebody else or maybe just an alternate version of me, there's many versions of me and they all do many different things. But if I don't get the right thing that I need for myself, that's true and authentic to me, then things won't really move very well.
100%. I agree with you. And I know I like to tell people that all of us have free will, and we kind of move in and out of like our highest timeline, or kind of move in and out um, of this timeline depending on our choices and our decisions. And I have found, especially for us, and when I say us, I mean light workers, people with a, because all of us have a soul purpose, right? What is this soul purpose? That is really the question. A lot of us are here to, I like to call us light workers. So a lot of us are in the process of awakening or have awakened.
Yeah.
And we are here to embody the light. And what I mean the light or the spark, it is to really heal people, and healing people could be in different ways, right? Some of us are Reiki practitioners, some of us are acupuncturists, teachers, right? Mentors, mothers. And so all of us carry this light within us. And for light workers, I like to say it's like awakening to our purpose is remembering that we have all these gifts and ability to heal, to share our wisdom, to spread joy, to raise the vibration of humanity. And so
That's
for
interesting.
me, yeah.
That's interesting because I've seen people a little bit more recently being triggered by the word light worker, or for anybody listening who's like, I don't even know what that is, that goes over my head, to think that many of us reincarnated to help support the human awakening, but in a way, there's a sense of superiority that happens where I do believe everybody has this soul consciousness within them that is ready to wake up, but perhaps in this particular iteration or in this moment of our evolution that we are resonating with this right now. Does this make sense to you?
I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that light workers, there's a sort of negative connotation. Is that what you are talking about? Um,
Yeah.
I don't think light workers, so everyone is a light worker. Everyone has the capability of being a light worker. A light worker is not a, for me at least, right? Light worker, the term light worker is really broad, but ultimately it's about being that light, and that light can be the light of truth for people to illuminate their way out of darkness. And when I mean out of darkness, I don't mean about absolute truth. I mean your own personal darkness, meaning healing your trauma. And so um, a light worker is somebody who can be, it's not about profession, it is not really even about beliefs, it is about this genuine sense of wanting to help others. And that is what I define a light worker, which is why I'm like, anybody can be a light worker. A mother is a light worker, a nurse is a light worker, a teacher is a light worker. It's not defined by religious beliefs, it is not defined by profession, but rather this genuine desire to help humanity. And it usually is somebody who, I would say, when I say awaken, because a lot of light workers heal themselves. It's like a path, a spiritual path, or at least in my experience, talking to a lot of people who have awakened, it is understanding that healing happens, that we have healing that we have to do because of some of those beliefs and some of the wounds that we have taken on. But a light worker believes that they can absolutely heal themselves, and then that desire to heal others as well. That's why I talk about raising the vibration. A lot of light workers come from a place of compassion now. And yeah. So I don't see it as a negative, or that, oh, it's only meant for some people and not others. I would say if you are attracted to the notion of being a light worker, or attracted to healing yourself or others, I think that is a sign that you could
Yeah.
very well be a light worker.
I
Yeah.
just think that when people come into a world like this and maybe they're new to spirituality, they don't quite understand what that might mean and that it is inclusive, because we did all show up at this exact same time on this planet to be here and to be part of this transformation, right? So it is inclusive, but for those of us who maybe use other words to define spirituality, I know some people that don't really consider themselves spiritual, but they have these beliefs that the mountains have this magical energy in them, and they don't want to bring any negativity there. They don't want to talk about their problems in the mountains because they want to keep it as this playful place. And yeah, there's just a lot of us that have endured some kind of spiritual trauma, and the religion can be a little bit heavier in the spiritual trauma with the just having people having words shoved down their throat and things like this. But I just don't, as a spiritual person and a teacher, I don't want that to happen with some of the words I'm using, because if something triggers you, you can just find a replacement for that word, or you can maybe even look into why something is triggering for you, because that's a huge revelation when certain teachers or people on the path actually trigger me, and I find what karma is there and what do I need to transmute.
I love that you are approaching this from a place of curiosity, because I think that's really, and that is, labels are labels, right? Labels, so an example, the light worker is a label, it's a term, and it just helps explain certain things. And I understand that labels have meaning and different people ascribe different meanings to it, negative or positive, and that ascribe of meaning comes from their own experience. So, which is why, again, right, I use the word light worker really broadly to just mean a person who has a deep desire to heal themselves so that they can heal others. And so, again, nothing to do with religion, which, because I know a lot of us have religious trauma, myself included, right? And so it's nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with any other like core beliefs. It's just broadly a person who has a strong connection to their intuition or wants to. And again, everybody, it's what you mentioned, it's inclusive, everyone can. And the fact that you're listening to this podcast, the fact that you're interested in anything spiritual, most likely you are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what label you use.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think labels are meaningless. It really is just a way for us to kind of like identify things, but the action and where, and the whether it's coming from a genuine place, I think that is what matters more.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And you see children coming into this world with all of this light, and you can also see people who have gone through trauma and they experienced or received so much as a child, so much of other people's emotions, that eventually they had to block it out, or they became kind of people pleasing. They weren't able to tend to their own needs because as a child going through this, we are not separate from others, and your pain, your trauma is my trauma. And so in a way, we're taking it on, but we're not even taking it on. We just inherently are holding on to that. And so as we move through life, maybe there are people that lose their way in this path and they find addiction, or they find ways of trying to stifle this emotion or shut it down. There's so many people that they create a dysfunctional relationship, and many of us, with substances, in spirit, even in spiritual circles, in trying to just slow down this trauma response. But in finding our way to awakening and realizing that the more light that we have, yes, we will illuminate the shadows, but the shadows become gold, and that gold is our gift, and we can hopefully integrate that into our being and allow that to be our purpose and help others. But, some people listening to this, they might not have even realized that they are a light worker, and that's the process they're going through. They might just have a little bit of I don't know, self doubt or self sabotage, or why is this going this way? And I don't understand.
Yeah, and I think this is a whole process. And I feel like once you have decided that, or interested, when I say decision, because it truly is a decision, I can choose to quit this and go back and join the corporate world. When we all have the capability, right, of just deciding that we don't want this anymore, and choose a different path.
Yeah.
So that's why I always use the word decision. We always have free will and we have agency. The thing about the spiritual, to be on the spiritual path, or I like to say the path of the light worker or the healer, or whatever you want to, you talk about the goddess, the priestess, insert any label that you want,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whichever label that kind of calls to you that you align with. This path is I would say, for me at least, and this is drawing from my own experience, everyone has a different experience. But for me, this awakening process was something that I was awakened because of a dark night of the soul, meaning that it was this period of intense struggle, of darkness, of confusion, where a lot of where I was actually literally forced to confront all the traumas I had growing up. It and I was forced to because this is based on survival. I either had to confront them and then survive, or not confront them and perish. And I chose to survive. I chose survival. And then it was this process of months, if not, a year, of confusion, not understanding what's going on, and just being in my own suffering and pain as I slowly healed and shed a lot of those beliefs that were the collective beliefs, societal belief, culture beliefs that I realized was not my own, that was keeping me from discovering who I truly was. And as I talk about purpose, I wanted to know why I'm here. I felt like I'm here for a different reason than to work in corporate America and making tons of money, And so that was I felt like, yeah, I am here for more, and couldn't understand, despite the successes I've had in corporate America, why I still felt unfulfilled.
Yeah.
That is I always felt like unfulfilled despite all the successes. And then it was a difficult time because I was confused. I was told that this is success and I should be happy, but
Yeah.
why am I not? And so that was the whole confusion, is what you mentioned right at the start of the awakening, just not understanding, why is this happening to me? And why am I not happy when I should be? When society tells me I should be. So it was
Yeah.
intense. And then a year, months of really intense kind of, I would say, deprogramming or unlearning. It's really is, I would say, discovery. Months of discovery and months of curiosity, peeling back the layers. And over a period of months to more than a year, slowly then realizing, oh, what is my authentic self? What drives me? And then I realized I love helping people. I love teaching people. I love helping people walk through out of that confusion, the shadow that they were experiencing, because I did that and I want to empower people. And for me, it was discovering, oh, you know what? This is what brings me value. This is what I find meaningful. So I'm hoping, people who are listening to this podcast, and if you're also wondering, like, what is my purpose? What am I here to do? Really look at what really brings you meaning and what really brings you joy.
Yeah. And when I met you in 2022, I believe at the retreat, you were still in corporate America. Was there kind of an unfolding with that where you kind of jumped off and said, it's time for me to fly?
Yeah, it was difficult. And it was a really hard decision because it was a major decision. And to be honest, at that time, thankfully, I had learned about the Akashic Records. I have learned tools to really drop into my intuition. And at that time, I had shed enough of the limiting beliefs and the feeling of being, you know, unworthy, and to really trust myself. And again, I agonized over that decision for months, but I ultimately made the choice where I felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. And I want to try this path. I want to try this path that is, for me at least, like there was no one else to model this path for me. I was going in sort of blind, but I trusted myself and I trusted my intuition that this was what I was supposed to do, because this is what really gave me meaning.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain. I feel, if it's hard to explain to someone, but it feels like, yeah. So the best way I can explain this is how you feel like you're empty inside when you go out to work, and despite all the success, right? You come back despite the promotion, the raise, all that, right? And the great big bonus. You feel that joy, obviously, you're happy and you feel proud of yourself and the accomplishment. But then when you look back at things, it feels empty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I started thinking about, is this the legacy I want to leave behind? And I started thinking, imagining my life 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30, 50 years from now. And then I was like, is this the life I want to have? Is this the legacy I want to leave behind? And then I kind of worked backwards. I was like, I don't want that, and I would say it was not an easy choice, because you are running up against status quo.
Did this purpose, this sense of unfulfillment, did it trickle into other areas of your life that you noticed?
Yes, I would say because I felt unfulfilled, I was constantly frustrated, and it's and not at peace. Because purpose for me is really important. Feeling like I am contributing, feeling like I am living my purpose of helping others and empowering others. Without that, then everything feels kind of empty, and that made me feel frustrated. That made me feel just unsatisfied. And that trickled on to things like relationships, because I'm not at peace. If I'm not at peace with myself, then I I was just not I think I was not a very happy person. I mean, I know I was not a very happy person, and I felt like it affected my relationships in all areas, my friendship, my romantic relationships, my family.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me about the timeline jumping that you've been working with.
I work in the Akashic Records, and the Akashic Records is a collection of our soul memories. So every deeds, every emotions, any past lives. So basically records everything that is related to our soul. And in the Akashic Records, time, or rather, I would say in the cosmos, perhaps, time is not linear. And one of the things that I believe in timelines was actually, this is something I discovered in the Akashic Records, was I had a client session, and one of my clients asked me, oh, what is something about the future? Wanted to know something about her future. And then the masters, teachers, and loved ones in the Akashic Records said, which one? And it blew my mind. I was like, which one? And then they gave me a visual of me standing at a point, and then there were all these lines spreading out. There were so many of them to indicate there are multiple timelines. And I'm like, blew my mind. And then they explained to me that each decision we make, each choices we make, opens and closes, like shifts us in and out of timelines, which is what I mentioned earlier. And so when we talk about manifesting, right, or if you talk about quantum leaping into a higher timeline, we are really asking the universe, or we're really asking our guides, which timeline is for the highest timeline for me, for my greatest and best, good, right? And so that is what I mean by timeline jumping, or when we think about manifesting. So if I'm trying to manifest, say for instance, I'm trying to manifest love. And so let's talk about love. And if I'm trying to manifest love, like a romantic partner, um, or soulmate that is for my highest and greatest good, and that is, in my mind, I have a vision or an image of that. I'm really asking the universe, like, which timeline will I meet this person? Because he's not going to show up in every timeline. And so then I'm like, okay, this is the timeline. I'm going to work backwards, because right now, when I'm standing here at this point, without doing anything, without healing anything, without changing my mindset, I want to figure out how can I get from point A to that soulmate over there. And so then we work backwards to figure out how. And that could mean things like, I have to love myself more, or I have to heal my sense of unworthiness, etc. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Timeline jumping. This is how I do manifesting work. I mean, this is kind of like my philosophy, right? They're all the different timelines. Which one is for greatest and best, like the highest timeline? And then how do I get from where I am right now to that particular timeline? How can I manifest it and bring it closer?
I think a lot of that also involves trust, and trusting that you're
Yes.
on the right path to
Yes.
the highest and best good. Because theoretically, we should all be choosing the best timeline that is of the
Yes.
highest and the most aligned for us. Just like you pretty much take the same route to work every morning. You usually don't deviate too much for the easiest. Maybe it's a better view. Maybe it's a little bit safer, but you choose that every single day.
Yeah. And so one of the things we can do, with meditation, is, so again, I like that you mentioned you take the same route every day to work. And sometimes you may not notice, but this route is very congested. And you're like, oh, but you take it for granted, because since day one, this route has always been congested. And you're like, oh, this is the way it is, right? But with a lot of like spiritual work and meditation, and now I'm not even sure if this is a good analogy, but we can clear some of the congested traffic. And so now your route to work is a nice drive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, clear the traffic.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a straight, like, it's an easier drive to your route to work.
With manifestation, I
Yeah.
like to focus not just on point A and point B, but the beautiful journey in between. Because if you don't fall in love with the process of the entire route, then you're kind of missing the point, and you're asking for something that once you get there, if you could just quantum jump there, would you even be in alignment with it? Would you even be able to appreciate it without all of the steps in between that you took to get there?
Yeah, I think manifesting work is such a fascinating thing. It's such a fascinating process, and a lot of people manifest in so many different ways. I would say choose, like, for me, when I'm thinking about timeline leaping, I believe that we got to do some of the work too. What does that mean? That means either changing, like what you mentioned, changing your mindset and enjoying the process to get there. And I always, when I do manifesting work, I always ask for something, for this or something greater. Because some of the things that I realize, and I've manifested some of the things that I have right now, but it is even better than I imagined.
Yeah.
And so I feel like sometimes we see things in a limited way, because we don't have, our blindness off, or, down.
Yeah.
And we can't see the scope of that expansion. And I think part of the spiritual work that you do, or we do, like healing ourselves, doing meditation, being more intentional about what we say, how we think, shifting our mindset, doing things a little differently, all of these little things add up. And so when we get to our place that we realize, oh my gosh, this is even better than I even
Yeah.
imagined. And I think that's the beauty of that. And when you talk about enjoying the process, absolutely. Because I think that people sometimes, that trust is really important. And thank you for bringing that up. Because I feel like sometimes, even when people are trying to manifest, they are really trying to hold on to a specific outcome and not letting the universe give you even better. What if there's an
Yeah.
outcome that's even better?
And
So
what you have
trust
to
is
figure out
absolutely
if the
critical.
end goal is really what you want, or if you're trying to manifest something that's just a material of the end goal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, and so that is great that you mentioned that, because, and I think each step of the way, with timeline jumping or aligning with your highest timeline, that's why I mentioned at the start is, so I do a lot of this meditation work where we kind of visualize and we find a timeline that is like, for right now, this timeline, where you imagined, your highest potential. And we believe, like, if you can imagine it, it's there,
Yeah.
it's already there. There's that future, it has already exist, right? And so it is how to get there. And so for me, and again, everyone has different processes and everyone has different philosophy when it comes to manifesting. And for me, it is doing some of the things. It is trusting that the universe will open the doors, but it's also kind of doing some of the things to change your behavior or change your mindset. And it could be as simple as just trusting.
Yeah.
And so sometimes in a lot of the manifesting work I do is mostly trust, is trusting that the universe will give it to you, but not just that, trusting that you are worthy.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we don't trust that.
Yeah. Have you heard much about solar flares and how they bring in these new light codes of energy? And basically, if you look at the Schumann resonance, which is the report of the Earth's heartbeat, basically how you're integrating new energies, they actually have people that can identify a timeline shift on those reports.
Oh no, that is really fascinating. No, I have not heard about that.
And some of the weird things, Mandela effect, or a glitch in the matrix that happens,
Mm-hmm.
where you're like, that coffee cup was yellow yesterday. Why is that coffee cup red? And that can be an explanation for some of those things that are happening. And in our manifestation, perhaps we, like, I can identify a time when I had a timeline shift. I was on a plane. I just knew there's a timeline shift. And what I was envisioning for the future, I couldn't imagine something else besides that. But then suddenly I was able to reset that in visualization, and then there was something that was maybe better, more aligned for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had something similar, I would say. And again, I believe in timeline shifts happen all the time when we shift, like, again, because we can shift in and out of the highest timeline. And here's why. And this will be kind of interesting. So, this is a little bit about Eastern, I guess, Eastern astrology that I'm not really familiar with, other than I grew up in a culture that really believed in this. So I had my chart read. And so it's very common to get a chart reading. And this is using Eastern Chinese kind of way of, because I'm ethnic Chinese, way of reading a chart. And then I was told that certain things in my life is predestined and certain things were not good things. And I remember thinking, well, can I change that? And they said, no, you cannot, because it's predestined, is written in the stars. And I'm like, oh, I don't really like this philosophy because then it shows that I couldn't change a lot of things. And I remember, and I was like, oh, that really bothered me because I was like, wow, it feels like the rest of my future is going to be not great based on the chart. I started learning more and leaning more into different kinds of spirituality and realizing timelines and shifting timelines, I was like, well, what if I can shift out of that? And again, I am not, this is not my forte, not an expert in this, but my experience was, so when the chart was read, it was many, many years ago when I had not started my spiritual journey, had not started healing myself, none of that. And it was based off, I believe, the energies of at that time, who I was. And I was stubborn and angry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt like after 10 years later, when I had started healing myself, and I felt like I was shifting and opening up new things. And so what was interesting was I had my chart read again, and with the same numbers, with the same all of the stuff, and it was different. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, is it a different reader? That's why it's different. But I've had conversations with people who really study this to ask them all these questions. And it's really interesting because they're like, oh, yeah, these are different. It feels like a different energy now, and it feels like it's good. This is all good things. And I'm just like, hmm. So this is what I was thinking about timelines and about kind of like jumping timelines is what you mentioned, because I started the process of healing, started the process of uncovering a lot of things and really shifting my perspective on a lot of things. I changed my mindset basically and
Yeah.
approached things from a different perspective. And then I felt at that instant opportunities started opening up. And that
Yeah.
was how I started and believed so much in this was because it happened to me when I went from really, about 15 years ago. If you would have seen me, get to know me,
Mm-hmm.
I was a very unhappy, bitter, angry person. And I would be like, I don't know why life is unfair. I always felt life was unfair and good things only
Mm.
happen to other people.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way anymore. Now I
Oh, of
see the
course.
blessings and I'm like, good things happen to me all the time. I'm thankful for that. And so that's how I was like, oh, maybe there is a timeline shift. Maybe I
Yeah.
shifted out of this. Yeah.
Yeah, with all the crazy new energy, that seems to be happening a lot. So, this has been really awesome and really fun and really exciting. And I just have one more question, and that is if there's one thing people can do today to help them shift into their higher timeline, their best timeline.
I would say there's one thing, I would say develop and trust your intuition, because your inner compass, like that is where your power lies. That is where your wisdom lies.
Yeah.
So trusting that, and again, I'm saying this because when you trust your intuition and it whispers to you, it's in your core, is your soul whispering and guiding you. And if you trust that, then you don't have to worry about what the rest of the people outside of you or things outside of you are saying or doing.
Yeah.
You are grounded and centered, and you always know your truth.
Yeah. Maybe take a little break from all of the YouTubers and what they're saying about the forecasts. And I just,
100%,
yeah,
yes. Even readers, right? And I say this even though I am a reader, or an Akashic
yeah,
Records reader, because the same way I had my chart read and I was thinking, I mean, I actually thanked the person. I
yeah,
went back and I thanked the person for telling me that, because I was like, if you didn't tell me those things, I wouldn't have started this path.
yeah,
And the person, the reader, was actually surprised that I went back and I thanked that person. But I said thank you because I understand now why that reading was necessary.
yeah,
And yeah, and so again, that centering yourself and knowing at the core that you don't have to worry about, yeah, exactly what the YouTubers are saying, what anyone else is saying, but you know the truth, and that
yeah,
is within you.
yeah. Oh, that's tingly. Do you have anything you want to share with our listeners about anything that you're working on that you're excited about, or just where to connect with you?
Yeah, I am usually working on a lot of things, and I love to meet new people, especially like-minded people, people with questions, people who just want to know more. You can definitely reach out to me on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, and I have tons of free healing as well. And so if you click on my link tree or click on my website, you'll be able to go to all those healings and download those healing, access those healing for free. And if you're really interested in knowing more and uncovering your purpose and really standing in your power or releasing the fears to stand in your power, as well as to align with your most abundant self, I have an offer. And so feel free to reach out to me to access that offer.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Michelle.
And thank you so much for having me.
Of course.